Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. I'm Simply G, and today I'm going to be talking about my first impressions on a particular series that I've been reading recently. Today I'm going to be focusing on Goodbye My Rose Garden by Dr. Pepperco. This is a complete 3-volume series in Japan. It originally started publishing in 2018 in Mag Ixiv. And has been licensed by Seven Seas. There's 2 volumes out currently, I believe, and this is a historical drama, Yuri, focusing on 2 young women in Victorian era England. The lady, a very high society lady called Alice, and a young Japanese woman who has moved to London in order to chase her dreams of becoming an author and meeting her favorite writer called Hanako. Hanako was at the publishing house of her famed author and was being rejected, wasn't really being taken seriously, and there she runs into Alice, who is I believe a book reviewer for this publisher. So they become friends, and Alice offers Hanako a place to stay by asking her if she'd like to become her maid, sort of her personal maid in her manor house with her family. And from there, Hanako agrees. She doesn't really have any plans of how she's going to get along in London. She doesn't have really any accommodation or anybody that she knows, so she readily agrees to this. But pretty soon afterwards, Alice asks her, after they've become a lot closer, quite good friends, if Hanako would help her die, help kill her. And we learn throughout the course of this first volume that I would say that probably the largest reason that Alice is wanting to die, is wanting to escape her current situation, is because she is a lesbian woman, and as such is not accepted by high society. She was afraid that she'll be stuck in her expected roles for the entirety of her life, and she would much rather die than have to get married and have the large family and be the good housewife for whichever lord decides to marry her, which she does have a fiance. And so a lot of the focus on this series, one of the largest, I guess, antagonistic qualities of the series, is on homophobia and period-appropriate homophobia and the issues that high society had with queer people, especially when we're talking about the upper classes, who women typically did have a expected role that they had to perform for family and their husbands and whatever else. But Hanako herself doesn't see an issue with same-sex love, people loving who they are attracted to or are in love with. She doesn't see why there's an issue with Alice being a lesbian, and of course this being a Yuri, there's the implication that the two are well suited to each other and have an attraction to each other. But I think in a unique way for Yuri, especially historical set Yuri, it's not very often that we have homophobia come up as a real mitigating factor to keep characters away, especially not one that focuses on it so much as with this series. Also, it's a 3-volume series, it's pretty short. We can already see in this first volume a lot of hints as to the entirety of the situation, and Hanako and her interest in this particular author and who that really might be, and Alice's role in life and why she may have chosen this. And it's really, 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 really good. I'd heard good things about this series. Hadn't heard of it prior to it being licensed by Seven Seas, but as always, they have a really interesting lot of licenses, and half the time I don't know of the series that they license, but they're all stuff that I'm interested in, and Goodbye My Rose Garden was definitely one of those. It took me a little while to pick this volume up just because it was sort of lower on my priority, but it was one that I was wanting to get pretty soon, and I'm really happy that I did, because I absolutely loved this particular volume. I think that 3 volumes is really probably the best for this type of series. It is able to explore the whole plot and the setting and the premise without getting bogged down too much by overextending itself, having to focus on other characters and things like that when it does get into a longer run. I think short and sweet with 3 volumes is the perfect amount for this series. I cannot wait to pick up volume 2 and subsequently volume 3, because it's one that, for me, I'm a big historical romance and historical fiction nerd anyway. This, obviously being a Yuri, still reminded me a lot of Emma, which is a historical romance, not a Yuri, but a historical romance, not only because of the maid and sort of upper class disparity between the classes romance that is in both of them, but just the absolute love for the time period, the accuracy of the Victorian English setting. Although the art style is not the same as Kawamori, it would not surprise me if one day somebody was like, oh yes, Dr. Peppercoat is just Kawamori's like Yuri pen name. It's not, but just the love and the fascination of the setting is, and also the author notes, and their self-proclaimed love for the setting and the idea and maids is very, very Kawamori-esque. And obviously, as a big Kawamori fan, it was right where I wanted it. It was wonderful. So absolutely recommend this series for pre-existing Yuri fans who are already fans of the genre, as well as people wanting to get into the genre, those who are fans of historical romance and historical fiction who don't mind queer romance. Yeah, definitely check this one out. I think both Alice and Hanako are pretty interesting characters. It's not an overly complicated story, and there's no real mystery as to any of the unknown elements, but it's satisfying and intriguing and beautiful and reflective in a way that I'm really happy to see we're getting more of in Yuri. It's also really nice to have a Yuri that isn't set in modern day, currently in English, at least. I've said this before about Yuri, I enjoy a lot of it, I'm a big fan of it, but I do find that, unfortunately, for what we get in English, and it has been changing thanks to the efforts of various publishers, but obviously Seven Seas, we are getting a lot more variety of Yuri stories, in a similar vein to how we've always had a real variety with BL stories. So I want to see just the entire spread of what is available in Yuri. Perhaps not the current trend of the office lady middle school romance that seems to be so popular in Japan right now, but I would like to see more Yuri that is set in a non-modern day Japan setting, if that makes sense, right? And this is that. So I am super duper even more happy that I picked this up and that it was super duper good. Highly recommend it. And yeah, let me know your thoughts down below if you have read this or you're wanting to read it. I love reading your comments. As always, you can follow me on various social media, but generally Twitter is where I'm at collectinggee. I'll link it in the description below as always. Thank you guys so much for watching. Do you agree or completely disagree with my first impressions on this one? Have you tried it? Have you heard of this series before? I'm always interested to see what people know and what people kind of what series fly under people's radar. It's really, really interesting to see. But thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you in the next video. Bye till then.